That's why we need this speed brake, and when we are in the air I will probably try and fix this. Okay, so we are at the holding point. Now here's one switch that I have not yet found. By the way, let's get rid of the yokes again, because as I say, they is a little bit impractical. See if we find this standby switch thingy. So the standby instruments are here, and they say standby instrument switch, standby inst on. Well, they look on to me. I just haven't yet found a switch for it. Ah, there it is. Ha! It was beside the avionics, where it makes sense actually. Transponder. Put that on alt. The pack safety switch we put into pack safety, which means probably not only that you have your seatbelt on, and here we go again with the click spots. No. Oh, no. Yeah. Landing light switch on. It's actually taxi and landing lights, recognition lights are in one switch. So if it's in the up position, we have the landing lights. Anti-collision light switch, that's the strobes. We are going to put the strobes on. Anti-col. The speed brakes are retracted and the ICAS is checked, and we are now in a power test. So for that we have the parking brake applied. We move the throttle up into the code CRU, that's cruise detent, which is here. There are actually detents. So when I move the levers up, watch what happens when it comes to the detent. You see it gets caught. We check the ICAS. There's nothing weird and wonderful, so I put them back into idle. Then there's a flaps test. I pull the flaps down or bring it down completely into the land position, and I bring it up again. And then we put it into the takeoff approach position. Now the speed brakes, and that's where when my the hunt for the speed brake started. Oops. So you put it into the extend position and you put it back in, and we are done. Now request takeoff. We release the parking brake and we line up. And again, you need to give it at least 50 on the N1 for it to start up. You can reduce slightly below 50 once it's rolling. Yeah, keep above N1 50 something, or you will be slowing down. And again, yeah, you need to kind of get used to it when you can actually reduce the. Yeah, and I need the steering for heavy steering, and then it just stops dead in its track. I'm not sure if it's like this in the real aircraft. I find it a bit strange that I have to apply that much power in order to get rolling here. Maybe it's realistic. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. So, parking brake is on. And now for the takeoff, what they say is, yeah, maximum, well, headwind 25 knots, max tailwind 15 knots, max crosswind 25 knots, V1 and VR, well, it's basically rotation is at 95, V1 and VR are the same speed, so at 95 we are slowly pulling on the yoke. Climb speed, we try and keep about 130 knots indicated. So let's make sure that our heading knob is aligned to the runway. I can do this by clicking up here. Flight controls test. Yeah, we've done that before. Clock time noted. And then we release the parking brake. We put the throttle full forward, set to takeoff detent, which is right at the front here. And then when we have reached 95, we rotate with about 10 degrees. Yeah, and then we have sort of the takeoff. All right then. So, parking brake is off, and I pull the throttle lever fully forward. And when we have reached our takeoff power, I let go. And 95, I pull on the yoke, I lift the nose up to about 10 degrees. I use also the trim, positive rate, gear up. All right. And now what I do is I activate the autopilot and the yaw damper. And I now try and keep around 130 knots. So we're a little bit faster than that. So above 125 we need to bring up the flaps. We'll do that. The landing lights can now be turned off. And we are on the climb. The climb speed is about 150. It's already following because I've preset the autopilot for the nav mode on the GPS. So it's nicely following our flight plan, which is good. It looks weird, but apparently, hopefully, this is looking strange. Let's see. Yeah, we are following the right ones, so we are fine. Although it looks crap. Throttle N1 set. Set climb detent. Oops, we have not enough power. See, we have. So they say that we should put it in the climb detent. You can see here CLB on the display, and it is actually here in the climb detent, and that hopefully should settle then with in and around 150 knots and a rate of climb of 3000 FPM. Really now? Well then, let's do that. I put 3000 FPM on. And that would probably then keep the 150 knots. So this is quite a climber, isn't it? Well then, we can now turn the pack safety off. That's this one here. Yeah. Altimeter is still set. We have sun and weather, so we'll keep it at 1013. Check increase pressurization. Where do I check this? Where do I check this? I have no idea. Probably here. Fuel, battery, cabin pressure. Yeah, there's an increase in cabin pressure. That's fine. And we've checked the ICAS. And now we're waiting for the cruise. So far this is actually working quite well. Let's synchronize the heading. So we now should continue to anchor. I think we have the wrong mode. Could that be? Ah, no. Here we go. We're going towards anchor, so everything is fine. So we are still in the climb detent, but we are actually now reducing speed, so I'm going to bring down the climb rate a bit, put it to 2500, let's say, in order to not lose too much speed. This is short final design global, and part of it is a photo, one ortho tile that I have from Munich. So let's again synchronize the heading. We're climbing pretty. So I'm going to reduce to 2000. In order to keep up the speed. Because I think we've gone a little bit slow. I'm also not sure about these markers here, you know, the white lines and so on. It looks like 150 is really what we should be at. Now we're turning. We've reached anchor, so our SID, standard instrument departure, is now done. I'm again reducing the climb rate, 1800, so that we kind of gain back to the speed. So I'm not sure about this climb detent. I'm also not sure how accurate this here is, okay? But I can see that the white area ends at 150. And obviously a climb rate of 3000 feet per minute in this climb detent doesn't really work speed-wise. So I've reduced it now to the more usual 1800 that you would have. And we've almost reached flight level 200. What we're going to do then is we're going to pull back into the sort of so-called cruise detent CRU. This is not an auto throttle, by the way. So this is just yeah, these are just certain positions of the throttle that probably give you the correct give you the correct speeds, but you still need to be controlling it yourself. 1000. So we have been leveling off. In real flights, we would actually be leveling off at far higher altitudes, way above the flight level 300. So I'm now going to bring it back, you see. So I'm now in the cruise detent. What does that mean? It means now that we have an 85.3 and 1. The ITT is in normal range here. Everything is in the green, temperature-wise, pressure-wise. We have a fuel flow of about 390 pounds, this is in pounds, pounds per hour, and we still have about 1100 in, so less than 3 hours with this current fuel. So if we consider that we have already been flying about 15-20 minutes, I guess. Yeah, well, we haven't been flying for 20 minutes. We have used quite a bit of fuel during that climb. So I would think that the range of this Mustang isn't exactly mind-boggling. Because if we have used already that much fuel, we have used 400 pounds on the takeoff. And here we are now at 400 pounds per hour in the... Okay, we are a bit lower than usual. It could be that this reduces when we are flying higher. But it means that I would say we can't fly down to zero. So we would probably have at least 200 pounds in each tank in order to be compliant with safety rules. So therefore, I'm guessing at the moment this is a range of 2.5 hours that we can get. Hopefully, a bit with less fuel consumption when we are really higher up. So that's interesting to know, and I need to actually read up on this. I forget. You need to click. And we have no wind against us, by the way. So let's synchronize again, and let's check. Can we? How was that? Can I back? Can I bring in the wind? Yes, I can bring in the wind. Option 1, option 2, option 3. Yeah, you can see we have no wind. Velocity is 0. So if that would be with wind against us, that would probably reduce the range even further. So I really need to check this out. Find this weird, yeah. So we're now increasing our speed to 250. Then starts this yellow bar. I'm not sure what that means, that it is yellow, if this is a problem or not. Yeah, hard to say. Again, something that I will probably need to check out. So we're on our way to OSTES now. And I can tell you already, here, that the plane is going to go somewhere into the sunshine. So I'm going to intervene shortly before BAMTA, before it starts making a mess. I will actually route it directly to ROSAP, and then we're also going to start a descent. Now for the descent, cruise checklist throttle ICAS, yeah, so now we have done that. For the descent speed is less than 220 knots indicated, rate of descent 1500 feet per minute. Okay, so we're going to use the vertical speed mode, and we're going to use that for descending. So we can see that it's slowly but surely getting faster. Now I understand that for the cruise, at least according to this here, if you go here, it goes with 340 knots in a true airspeed. So we need to actually activate the true airspeed here. And flight level 410 is the ceiling, so it is supposed to go relatively high, which we aren't at the moment. Can I actually activate true airspeed? I could have put V-speeds here. So we're turning again towards BAMTA now. And this looks a little bit better than yesterday, but I'm not sure. I mean, yesterday it made a big mess here. So I'm not going to take a chance, because I know that this usually doesn't work. Even if it looks correct, it does not work. So I'm going into the flight plan, and I'm going to select rows up, and then I'm going to use the direct button, direct rows up, enter. Okay, and out we go. So we can't see this now because yeah, the direct, this is the X-plane Garmin, and it is not perfect. It's working reasonably well, but it's not perfect. There are issues that you can have. And we're going to reduce now the altitude. I'm going to dial in 1500. Again, hard to read. Okay, 1500. And I'm going to use the vertical speed mode, and I'm going to pull down the nose with 1500 feet per minute. Feet per minute. Make sure that the Alt S is showing here so that it actually stops. I had cases where it would just continue to climb or sink through my altitude. So we're turning now towards BAMTA. Sorry, rows up. So it has already switched to the next waypoint. Bingo. I thought I said direct rows up, but maybe I done a mistake. Doesn't matter. Is okay. We are descending, and now we need to obviously take back the power because we have got a good bit faster. And here we go. The telephone, punctually, every time I'm doing something, this telephone rings and tries to distract me, so they will have to wait. So I'm going to try and keep it on about 240 knots. There's no auto throttle, so you really have to do it yourself. You have to watch out for the speed. It can go pretty fast. Yeah, this is one of the aircraft where you need to probably get yourself, find out which N1 settings render kind of the correct result, keeps the speed. I mean, we're now descending with 1500 feet per minute, and I'm on 72.5 roughly. Actually, we're not quite synchronized with the throttles because I have two separate axes, and I don't think they are fully aligned. Interesting. It's also something I need to watch out for. 1000. And obviously now when we level off, which we're going to do soon, I need to then be ready to apply more power. Otherwise it would drop in speed again. Here we go. So So I'm, yeah, that's the cruise detent, but we are actually accelerating in the cruise detent, so I'm going to reduce this a little bit, take it out of the cruise detent, and have it to stay in and around 250. So it's still climbing a bit the speed, so I leave it. Yeah, it's a bit of a So it looks like 80 something will at least roughly hold the speed, although we are still slowly descending. It depends very much on the winds too, so there's probably no hard rule what the best setting is. But it's the kind of aircraft where you need to actually get yourself accustomed to that. See, now we're accelerating again. It's very hard. That's the problem when you don't have a auto throttle. You need to try and get and wait also that the aircraft stabilizes at some point, because it will. You just have to make sure that it stabilizes where you need it to stabilize and not where it thinks it should. So I leave it like this now, and let's see what happens. So we are on the next waypoint. After Landu comes, what comes after Landu? Let's see. After Landu comes Mike. We're now approaching Mike. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put myself on this mic, and I'm going to use the direct 2. Activate enter. Because that means that we will definitely not have a discontinuity, because now you can see this thing is filled. It wasn't filled before. If I wouldn't have done that, we would have ended up going somewhere after Mike, because it didn't realize that it needs to continue. So again, this is something that is specific to the implementation of the Garmin here. Has nothing to do with the RWDesign. So the RWDesign so far, I have to say, is actually quite nice. It's working quite well. I recommend, as I say, get yourself the clist.txt from the forum, because I think it is more superior, because it supports you a little bit with the different flight stages, whereas the normal checklist is just a picture to look at, and you need to kind of find out where you are and all that. Maybe it's the realistic way, but as a sim pilot, we have enough difficulties that we face compared to actually real world, that things like that just help a little bit, and to kind of keep ahead of the game. So we can see Munich just off here. There's Munich airport. And it looks like we are slowly increasing, so I'm going to reduce a little bit on the throttle again, because I don't really want it to get much faster than that. And now I'm going to start the descent, but it will be a somewhat shallow descent. So again, very difficult to see the altitude. There's a constraint for the next one of 5,000. And we're going to use the vertical speed mode, WS, and I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use 1500. Going to use 1500 feet for the moment. And then we have to take back the power. Going to turn top off. Makes it a little bit easier. Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes it seems to show us the kind of descent ring, and sometimes it doesn't. I'm not always sure when what is and so on. So actually we may have to increase the center rate a little bit. So I'm going to put it on 1800 and I'm going to reduce power a little bit. So approach speed is 65% and between 180 and 150 knots. Altimeters check. Pack safety switches on. And this skid switch is on. Landing light switch, yeah, at 10,000 we will turn that on. So I'm going to do it now so that I don't forget. And the flaps, we have to extend below 185 knots. Bring it into the takeoff approach. But that is some time still to go. I think we're fine on the descent, I hope. We're a little bit on the fast side, so I'm reducing. So keep watching your speed. It's one of these aircraft where you can't just rely on the automatics to do it for you. You need to do it yourself. $10,000. You can see the airport over there. We're below 10,000. So I think we can reduce again to 1500. I mean descent rate. Let's quickly check. IMNE for ILS Munich Northeast 109.5 and the course is 80. So what we're going to do is then once we have reached MAGAT and we have kind of aligned here with the extended runway line, I'm going to switch into heading mode on 080. And then I will switch the CDI to localizer 1, which will activate the ILS, and then I'm going to activate the approach mode. 7,000, I think we can go slower on the descent. And I will also see that we end up in and around 220 when we're at MAGAT, and then we need to slowly but surely reduce below 185 so we can extend the first stage of flaps, and we need to be at 150 in order, I think, to extend the first the gear and the final stage of flaps. Alright, let's synchronize the heading. We're now flying towards MAGAT. We are at 5,000? Anyway, I can see the ILS indicator. I can't see it yet because we haven't switched. So we have reached the 1,000. I think that should work out nicely. We're going to be at 5,000 at MAGAT. I'm pretty sure. That's what we have to be. Left to 099 in 9 seconds. That's what's shown on the Garmin here, when the next turn will take place. And as I said, we're going to be nicely aligned. So I let it go this way, and the track to go is 079. We've reached that, and I say synchronize heading, and I'm going to switch the CDI directly, and now I'm using the approach mode, which is here. So the localizer is already armed, the glide slope is already captured, and we are starting already to go down the glide slope. That worked out precisely. Very nice. So now I need to reduce the speed slowly but surely. We need to get below 185 towards 150. Luckily enough, it is easy to do this in this aircraft. There's no problem slowing down. You just need to take away the power, and it will do it relatively quickly. .9 miles from the ILS. So I'm trying to reduce now to 185, taking back the power completely. We are at 185, flaps 1. This will now cause the speed to drop even more. So I'm now going below the 150 mark, and we will approach with about 110 knots, and we will land with about 95. Gear down. Speed is reducing even further. And flaps full. And we can now see that the landing checklist has come. We're going to turn the yaw damper off. So flaps in landing position, autopilot, we're going to turn off at decision altitude. So up. Speed has come down a little bit, so I increase it again. Let's stay a bit over 100 knots while we're still on the approach, because we've actually gone below the glide slope now. You need to be careful with the speed, because I think what it did is it tried to compensate for the speed loss, and therefore we gone under the glide slope, and it wasn't able to, because it wanted to sink in order to gain more speed, so you need to try and stay above 100. Now we're back on the glide slope. I haven't set the minimums. I actually forgot to do that. So I'm now going to disable the autopilot. There's no auto throttle to disable. I just leave it going at the moment with the settings that I have. Going a little bit high, so I reduce the power now, and that means we start dropping, which is okay because we're getting closer to the glide slope again, and we're actually not increasing speed, on the contrary. And I pull on the yoke on the fantastic honeycomb, and I let it hopefully gently, not quite centered, I know, and we got 185. So it is actually very easy to land this aircraft with a reasonable amount. Now, if I would have that air brake thingy now, okay, I wouldn't need to take my eyes off the runway. I forgot to actually program that key. But you can see how impractical it actually is. So I'm using the brakes. I have differential braking, so I never get it exactly right with the brakes. So that's why we are going a little bit left and right. Okie dokie. So we have arrived in Munich with actually a very nice, very, very nice aircraft. I am well impressed. The fact that we are using mainly X-plane default navigation is not a real problem. If you know how this behaves, then you should have no issues. You can fly everything with the default Garmin. You just have to be watching out for some of the weird peculiarities that it has. But normally, a normal route, unlike mine, normally you shouldn't get any issues with following the route. My special course is exactly designed to see if an aircraft behaves correctly or wrongly, and usually when it is a default X-plane aircraft, at least still, it will behave strangely in some areas, and it's just simple to know that. But apart from that, which is not really RWDesign's thing, I think this all works very well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off all the power switches, and yeah, so I'm going to use now, and that's now the difficult part. Let's see if we can get to that click spot. That's exactly what I was thinking now. And we turn off the engine. So let's turn all of that off, and also turn off all these switches into the off position. Off, 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 off. Ah, that's the reset position, yeah. So norm, 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 and then off, 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 off. And I think I've turned them all off, hopefully. Looks like it. And then I can use the exterior door thing in order to open the front door for my customers. It's a bit awkward that you have to open two menus to get there, so I will probably have to program a key to have a more quick access. And I'm still impressed by this here, because now that I see this working, this is actually very practical. This is what we would have needed. I'm not sure why it didn't work for me on my first flight, but yeah, this is actually exactly the way it should be. Great. So my resume is quite a good one, actually. The modeling is, as I say, is sufficient. That's fine. That's, yeah. I'm not one to use fabulous and all these kind of hype words. It's fine. It is good to look at. The same is in the cockpit. I think the cockpit is actually quite pleasing. I really like it. And it's a good compromise of, let's say, drawing and realistically looking areas where you would actually immediately believe that it is coming from the real aircraft. So I think they've done a good job here with this. There's no problem here. Also the cabin, yes, we can see the corners here in the windows, but who cares really now, honestly. So I think, yep, this is done well. The whole system depth is simplistic. But it is good that it is simplistic because it actually means you can start up this aircraft without much fuss. There is no like TBM 900 complications. It just starts. You can fly with it. You can do your VATSIM and IVEO flights. And to me, because it is standard X-plane navigation, just be aware of how that works, and that's not RWDesign, that's X-plane. Once you know how that works, you should have no issue getting around with this one, flying your routes, also changing your approach and following the instructions from the ATC controller. All that is no problem with this aircraft. You've seen, once you have set it up with the checklist, during flight, the only thing you need to really be monitoring is the speed. That's the only thing that you need to be on your toes with. Apart from that, the rest is working quite nicely, and yeah, and landing, flying it manually is also, especially since I have the new honeycomb yoke, is also fun. Yeah, so I don't regret at all that I bought this aircraft from RWDesign. I'm really happy. And as you know, I'm not associated with any of these manufacturers, companies, authors, developers. This is completely paid by myself. I do not do any advertisement or things like that. I just bought it because I wanted to look at it. I waited for the sale so that it's a bit easier on the money here for me, because I naturally spend more money than others would do because I want to do videos about them. So my opinion is my opinion here. It's not influenced by any developer, any donations or stuff like that. And it will stay like this. I do not intend to make a change to this rule. Right. Thank you very much for watching. I have to still see what I do with the first part, if I redo it at some point, or if I give it to you as it is. Yeah, but we shall see. Anyway, this was the flying part, and this is usually also the fun part. Until next time.